guess I'll start. There was somebody that had a question about this one, so let's do this one. I don't know that these lights do anything better or worse. They're, I don't know what. Okay. So this one has this is really the only one that I had signed from this chapter. And if you don't mind, let me go to the chapter first and then come back. So I probably should have put the book up there first. Here, let me make this go away. Go back to content. So depending on the fluids book, this chapter can end up in a couple of different places. Let me get to chapter 3. Excuse me. Okay, so this is kind of a strange chapter in an interesting sort of way. Let's see, can I make it occupies? You can't make it, you either make it go away or it. So he starts talking about the different types of fluid, flow. But the thing is there's a combination of assumption first, and then a little bit, a small reality. And let me give you a case in point. So if you take some sort of object, let's say you had a pulsating flow. So it's basically a piston pumping back and forth. And it goes down a pipe. This is a weird example. And what happens is the fluid is moving back and forth, changing directions. So imagine, if you will, we talked for a minute about this in chapter 1. In other words, the shear stress, the viscosity, and this is actually a velocity derivative. So it turns out there's inertia associated with it. So if you just push the piston that way, all the fluid goes that way. It started at 0 and it picked up over a short period of time. What happens is that it takes time for a boundary layer to develop. In other words, if you just got a mass of fluids, it'll just be shoved straight forward, and then the flow profile basically looks very much like this in that short instant. And then if you keep pushing, what will happen is the appearance of the wall kind of over time becomes parabolic. So what happens is, in these little short pulses, you could assume it to be inviscid. So there's a small amount of reality to this, but there's a large amount of assumption. So you can assume something and reduce the equations, but unless the flow situation matches it, you're just assuming a real phenomenon away. And so you've got to be able to look at this and say, is it reality or is it an assumption? Is the assumption I'm making associated with the reality of the situation? The other case is when you get to flow measuring devices. Let's say you had a reduced so you have a Venturi tube, and what happened would be, let's say you put a tap right here, and then what you did is you put the tap way down here, and you're looking at the pressure difference between these two. If this is a long distance, you're going to get some different readings than if you had it like right here. The reason being is because if it's way down there, there's a lot of stuff that can happen between here and there to reduce the pressure and not get you a good estimation of the flow rate through this. So again, assumption versus reality. And so you really have to look at this. So in this whole chapter, he talks about types of fluids, graphical representation, flow description. it becomes more nebulous, and you have to really understand what's going on to make these assumptions. So he goes in here, there, average turbulent flow, laminar flow, classifications of flow. So the thing is, he gets to this point where general descriptions, and what you'll find is something, now a streamline and a streak line, those are kind of, so in a streamline what's happening is if it's steady flow and you drop, say you drop a color right here. Say you drop a piece of floating a feather on top of the water, and it's going around this. What'll happen is it'll go around here. It's possible that if the feather was right here, it might go around here, and it might get caught in the wake back here. So this is ideal flow in which there is no wake. So you're making an assumption. In order to match that assumption, the flow has to be going really, really, really slow. If it's going fairly fast, the ideal flow assumption isn't going to fit, and you're going to have, some circulation back here. Is there a situation in which you can basically assume nothing? Well, yeah, you can. You can get into numerical flows, and that can actually cost you a lot of computer time because it takes a lot to do that. So, here's the case, as these streamlines go, what happens is it narrows down, it goes a little faster, and then it slows back down. Especially if there's a wall out here, because the one out here won't move that much, and so you've got to and actually, in the old days, they used to kind of just draw this net through here, and you could look at the approximate dimensions, and you'd be fairly right about it. And so they would do, in the old days, they would do a flow net. And essentially what they were trying to do is come up with an approximation of what would happen around there. Seemed to be okay. Then there's stream tubes. The same thing happens. It's not really a tube. It's a tube through the flow in which you've tracked all the particles and they stay within that tube. And so in there, he comes up with some equations, and those are nice. You'll never really see that as far as coming up with those, but knowing the equations is nice. Computational fluid dynamics, that's what I was kind of referring to earlier, and that is where you actually put a grid around the thing and calculate it. In other words, if you actually have, that's too hard for me to draw to make the point, but let's say you have a circle, a cylinder going through here. There's 2 or 3 types of grids. One is an unstructured grid, which usually is a bunch of triangles around here, usually close packed near the surface, usually have to be very closely packed, more close packed than most people realize. And then out here, they can be fairly large, and this is an awful rendition, but so you might have this, and at each of the intersections or each of the nodes, you'll calculate the pressure and the velocity in the x and velocity in the y, and maybe temperature or something like that. There's an unstructured grid, then there's a structured grid. Usually the structured grid actually came originally out of the flow net. That's the first occurrences of those. So you take a flow net and you create something like this. You can actually get a grid in which the intersection, these are all quadrilateral based, and you can get something like this, and you can calculate on all the intersections and do the fluid equations in each of the squares. Usually there's a mix between those two, and the reason being, most people don't realize, if you were going to do over a car, for the first half inch, you would probably want a good 200, 300, maybe 400 points, even more than that. And then out into the main flow, you don't need near that much. So you need to cluster really close around the body in order to get anything accurate. It depends on the definition of accurate too. If you're just looking for a first run approximation, but if you really want to be able to go to your boss and say, this is going to be the drag on this vehicle, you're going to want to pack a lot of grid points around this. And there are codes out there that do this. I should put the .com on there, but this is one code that does this. If you look at it, you can see. I don't know if I can draw that closer, but it doesn't look very good on the board, but it looks good on the screen. So what you see as an object here is really close pack, a lot of grid points near it, but you can see as you get away, they're still fairly fine, but you don't need to be worried as much about them out here in the mainstream, away from a physical body. Maybe you could see better. I don't know. Let's see what this does. So, okay, can you actually see? Yeah, you can see that. So, I see it well on the computer screen. The projector doesn't do as well. So you can see the object, of course, needs to have a surface grid on it, and coming out from that is a volume grid. And you can see these are some of the solutions I guess they've got. So it says try online. I'll accept and close. I don't know what that. Oh, okay. Online platform. Oh, they did an online platform now. That's kind of the new thing. So, with this cloud computing, in the old days, in order to solve something like this or solve a big problem like this, you would have to buy a big computer system and some stuff like that. Now you can get a cloud computer and pay a monthly fee or a fee that is based upon how much you use it. And so here's somebody that gridded up, it looks like a car. I think it's a car. And essentially you can see a bunch of triangles, or they might be triangles. It's hard to tell because it's so far away. And then, okay, so it's $2,000 a month. I don't know what 20 tokens is. 20 tokens. I guess the token is $100. Each token is. So anyway. So I don't. This was Candace actually purchased this software from some people I used to work with. I don't know who. I have no idea who's on the. Yeah, see, I don't know these people. They purchased this software from. So the company actually. So this is the Candace leadership team. The Pointwise was a product that they purchased, and so there's a little bit. You can kind of see this a little bit. So the thing is you can't do this justice in a class. You can just basically say it's there, and you can't really do much with it. It's a lot of effort to go through this process, but you can do this. You can look at it from the standpoint of the problem that I assigned, and it's simply this. It says, okay, I lost the first little bit, so let me scroll that down. Oh, I lost a lot of it. Okay. To calculate the components of the acceleration for a fluid element using the streamline coordinates. Okay, learning goal. In some situations, the acceleration of a fluid element can be calculated mostly using streamline coordinates. The fluid velocity always points tangent to the streamline. However, the acceleration vector does not have to be tangent to the streamline. The reason being is because, it's just the same way as a particle. If If a particle is moving along, if it starts turning, somebody forced it to turn. Therefore, there's an acceleration component that way. The v squared over r is what makes it turn. Okay, so the tangential component of the acceleration is I guess that's it. Let me see, is that S?
Yeah, it looks like it.
S, okay. Okay, along the streamline. Yeah, the change in velocity along the streamline times the velocity times the derivative along the streamline. Why does it look like this? And let me give you an idea of why it looks like that. So we'll do it along this way. I think I've talked about this before. So if you look at a velocity right here, say it's 10, you look up here, because it shrank down, velocity is, say, 18. I just made up a number, it doesn't really matter. So what happened is if you sat here, you would see, and if you sat here and stared at it, then what you see is just a velocity of 10. So you think it's not accelerating. But in fact it is, because it's moving to the right. So the acceleration is generally thought of, I shouldn't say that, it's defined as velocity change with respect to time, but you don't track it. So what you're doing is you're doing this. I'll say this is S, and it's ds dt. ds dt is nothing more than the velocity itself. So you get the velocity times the change in velocity along the streamline is the acceleration along that streamline. Okay, the first term is the local along the streamline. The second term is the convective acceleration due to the change in the velocity along the streamline. So in fact, it's the fact that you're staring at this spot and it happens to be picking up and going faster, but you're not tracking it. You don't have velocity as a function of time. You have velocity as a function of where you are on that streamline. So you're technically in fluid. You stare at a point and you say, I want to know the velocity there on the acceleration. So you have this term, change in velocity with respect to time. Okay, so then you go down. The normal component of the acceleration is this change in velocity. In other words, if it is changing towards away from there, and then this term right here. Here the first term is again the local acceleration. The rate of change in the second, okay, I gotta scroll down. The second term is the convection again, convective change. For the normal component, and this is due to the curvature of the streamline, where R is a radius of curvature. So this is basically it having to change directions. So now it says, okay, consider the flow through a pipe as shown in figure, I guess that's it. Yeah, figure 1, because there's only one figure. The inlet and out of the pipe have the same diameter. They look like they do. I mean, actually, this looks a little smaller than that, but he says they are the same diameter. So the velocity of the streamline is, at point A, this is right there, is 10. What is the magnitude of the acceleration at A if the radius of curvature is that? Radius of curvature is that. Okay. So that would be 10 over, oh no, sorry, 100, or okay, 10 squared over 0.3. I almost said 3. I don't know what that is. Let's just put that in. Hang on, I'm so, this is bad, but here. 100 times 0.3, what's that? 333. I was got to say I'll do this and enter, but I can't do that enter. I have to do it on the computer screen. Let's just say 300, see what happens. Hey, I'm going to do something funny. I'm just going to put that in. Ooh. Okay, so I had this problem before. And I don't, okay, so let me do this other one and then I'll go back and area changes. Now consider the flow in a similar pipe, where D2 is smaller as a result the velocity on the streamline A is, what is the magnitude of the acceleration at A if R is 0.3 and S is 0.4? 4. Okay, so you know what? I got to look at this, okay? Okay, let me look at this. Okay, so I've got velocity, S, and T. Okay, so what is the magnitude of the acceleration if R is that, and S is 0.4? So first thing I need to do is change in velocity with respect to S equal to, okay, I think that's just 5. Then I need to know, okay, so I'm going to basically be hunting for this. So I'm going to be hunting, there isn't any of this term. So I've got the V squared over R, and I've got, that's one term. And then I got the term that was up there, and that is V times dV ds. Now, let me go back up and look at it, because it's up there. Oh, did I pass it? Oh, there it is. It's this one. So I got that. So I got this term times that. So I got to just find the velocity. So what do I need to know? I need to know the velocity. I need to know the dV, ds, and I need to know the r. Okay, so my velocity at the point that I'm interested in, okay, the velocity at that point, s equal to 0.4, and t equal to whatever, doesn't matter, is equal to, so I put in this 10 plus 5 times 0.4. That's 0.9. Is that 10.9? Okay, so I am so not wanting to calculate anything anymore. It's 12. So I get 12. So that's the velocity. So 12 squared, okay, so 12 squared over the r still 0.3 is going to be equal to, this is so sad, but it's okay, 480. So I get this term being 480. What do I get this term being? 5 times v, so I get 5. This part's 5, right? And this part's v, which was 12. Isn't that 60? Now, the thing about these two, and they're always this way, they're perpendicular to each other. So, you know, you got one this way. This is the tangent. Does he call it tangent? He calls it, okay, in dynamics it's called tangent, but here it's along a streamline, and this is the normal. So what's the answer? 480 squared plus 60 squared. Here, I got to do it in place that 60 squared. I don't know why I'm doing this, because it's going to tell me I can't put that in. But I can go look and see 483. So 483 roughly. Let's just try to see if I can put it in. It wouldn't let me before. So I doubt it's going to let me again. Let's try it. So let's try it again. Yeah, it won't work there. What is it? 480? Let's just put in 484. It's not going to tell me. Okay, slowing down. Now consider a flow in a similar pipe where D2 is less than that. What followed, okay, the flow is slowing down. As a result, the velocity along the streamline is that. What is the magnitude of the acceleration at? Okay, so here he's got that. Okay, so here I got the same thing. Okay. However, I get this part too. Okay, here's what I mean. Okay, wait a minute. I got too much junk in here. So I get a time component now. So that means that this time component is in there as well. Okay. So magnitude of the acceleration. So what I've got to do is I've got to go back and do this. That's awful. Why do I need to do that? I don't want to do that. But anyway, it says at 2 seconds. So how do you do this? Well, what you do is you go in and you sit there and you say, all right, I'm going going to first find these two terms because I did that before. So if I'm looking at this, I'll tell you what, I got room right up here if I get rid of this. If you go up here and look at this, dv ds at, I'll say at t, I'll say it this way, at t is equal to, what do you say, 2 seconds is equal to, now take the derivative here, I get e minus 2, because that's just 2, and then derivative of that is just 5. So that is that term. Now the question is, what is v? Well, v is going to be equal to e to the minus 2 times 10, and what was 5? Well, I mean, what was s? 0.4 plus 0.4. I don't think it was 0.4 before. Maybe it was. And so you get that. So you get this term, you get that term. Now the v, you already got it from here. And so you just square that, put it over r. R stayed the same. So you took care of this term, you took care of that term. So what you do for this term, you get e to the minus 2. I don't feel like doing the numbers. 10.4 because of that. And then, oh, I'm sorry, 5 times s. 5 times s, that should be 5 times 0.4. Sorry. That's still back to the 12. I think. I'm just going to write it. Okay. So that is that term. So if you're doing this term, that's your velocity there, square it over 0.3, that becomes that term. Now how do you do this term? Well, that's actually pretty simple because you've got this term. And so now you take v with respect to time, and that's going to be evaluated at s equal 0.4, and t is equal to 2. I'm trying to write the number 2 right there. Derivative, oh, that's easy because e to the minus t minus e to the minus 2 times 10 plus 5 times 0.4, that becomes the term that goes right here. Now, what happens here? Okay, so what you have is this. This term, in my estimation, might be 0, but might not. Let's think about that because actually, it's not going to because that means that you're changing the velocity towards or away from the normal, which would be here. So I think that term is 0. And so let's see what... first he has available hints. Before I look at the answer, let's see what his available hints. Oh, I can't look at hints. I can't do anything. So I guess I'll just go to... Let's see what data view is. Oh, no, that's no good. Solution view. Okay, so what you do... Okay, so there's the 333. That's what I got before, but it wouldn't let me enter it. I wonder if I could see the 3 hints here. Oh, I can here. I don't understand. Hint 1. It is good practice to describe the nature of the flow and to state your assumptions. What are the features of the flow? Match the words to the left. Okay, the flow is not changing with time, and so it is steady. Oh, cool. So I'm guessing it had a thing where you drug it over there. It is not. The velocity is not the same everywhere in the pipe. It is uniform. Okay. Okay. So hint 2, determine the streamline component. The streamline component acceleration is that, dv ds. So evaluate the expression given the velocity at 10 meters. Express your meters. The answer is, but I thought he was looking for the square root of the squares. Was he not? Okay, that's part A. Hint 2.
Oh, hint 2. Oh, this is still associated with the hint from part A, right? Okay, wait. So I do away the hint. There's the answer. We got that. But then we go down. Oh, hint 1. So I guess if you hit hint 1, you're supposed to answer that. And then hint 2. Okay. And then hint 3. Determine the normal component. Okay. Answer. So he says that, then he says this. Okay. Area change. Okay, this is kind of weird. Okay. I was too lazy to calculate. Oh, I did calculate. Did that one. Okay, so I got that one. So it's available hints. Okay. So then you go down here. Okay, I got the 60 because that was the 5.
Okay, there's too much stuff happening here. I was too lazy to find the numbers there. So this was the 5. Wait, this was the change. This was the 5, and this became whatever the number was. When I put in S, that was 12. So this was 12, and that was 5. Gave me back the 60. So the 60, the square root of the squares, gave me the 480.
So he has 480. I think I got 480 something. 484. So that's okay. 480 square root of squares and 60 squared. Okay. So now slowing down. So here's what he's got there. He's got the answer, but this is kind of weird. But I didn't even have the energy to calculate all the rest of those terms. But what you get is that term, which I'm not even sure. Let's look at his hints because he'll walk us through it. Okay, so he's got the thing. It's not steady. So what you get, okay, so you got the change in, okay, so this and this velocity became e to the minus 2 seconds times, what was it, 10 plus 5 times 0.4. I don't know what that number is. This became the derivative with respect to time, which was 5. The derivative with respect to space, which was die, times e to the minus 2. I do not know what those terms are, and I'm not sure the way he's written this out. But let's just see. Let's just see what happens if I put this in. Okay. This became 0.27, and this became something besides 0.27, which 1.624, and then you had this term, change with respect to time, which that was e minus t of 10 plus 5s, which was minus e to the minus 2, 10 plus 5 times 0.4, and that became another number. Oh, minus 1.624. So minus 1.624, oops, which is the first term, minus 1.624 plus that times that, 1.624 times 0.27. I have no idea. Let's see. It may not read this correctly. I get slightly different. Get 1.1.
So I must be monkeying up something I've done wrong. DVDS. Oh. I don't know why we do it this way. I think this is supposed to be like this. This is supposed to be DVDT and V times DVDS. So somehow I've monkeyed it up. Let's see. DVDS. What did I not put in there correctly? 2 seconds, 0.4, e to the minus 2. So if I put in this, take its derivative, 5 times 0.27. Unless the phone is not calculating this correctly. 0.5 e to the minus 2. Okay. So in this particular case, it is true that's going to be different than that. Sorry. It's supposed to be that. That's on me. Okay. 0.677. That's my fault. Now let's go back. Yep, and that's what the answer is. So what I've done, dVds, if I take a derivative of this with respect to the s, it's e to the minus t times 5 without the s. So that was my mistake. So we get the right answer there if we did it that way. And then determine the normal component. This is the part that's going to be interesting to me. So your v squared, so v squared of this dot radius of curvature, he does not, the normal kinetic acceleration is this. Okay, he does not address this term. He doesn't say any words about this term. But the fact of the matter is the velocity is not changing in time with respect to going towards the center of rotation. So you just get that. You take that squared and that squared, add them together. You get 8.81. So essentially all it is the application. It's the application of these two equations just in a general sense. The application of these two and these two. This term never has a component in this particular case. So, and that's pretty much it. 238. So I guess we'll call it good. And then what we'll do is the essential part is we're gonna. I just gave that problem to get you to doing some of this, and that's it. And then the next part, like next time, I'm going to start in conservation of mass.